Well, now I'd like to introduce today's moderator, Dr. Ethan Siegel, Associate Professor of Japanese History and Chairperson of the Japan Council at the Asian Studies Center. And our guest speaker, an MSU alumna from the class of 2023 who earned a double degree in neuroscience and human biology with a minor in Japanese, and Miss Universe Japan 2024, Kaya Chakraborty.
Thank you, Kawaguchi-sensei, for the introduction. And Kaya, we're delighted to be able to welcome you back to campus today.
Thank you very, very much.
Has it been a long time?
It's actually been a year. I graduated in 2024, and since then I haven't had the chance to come back. I wasn't able to attend my own graduation ceremony because I went straight to Japan for the competition. So it's really nice to finally be back, and absolutely in this way, of course. So
Well, we're delighted to have you.
Thank you.
We're having a conversation both, of course, about your remarkable accomplishments. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But also about beauty standards in Japan. But I thought we'd begin by just asking you to talk a little bit about maybe some of your childhood experiences. Growing up, of course, as a person of mixed heritage. How did that maybe affect, your own ideas about beauty when you were younger?
Definitely. I get asked that question a lot because, as you can tell, I don't look quite Japanese. And that's been something I've always been questioned about all my life. And so to clarify, my mother is Japanese and my father is from Bangladesh. However, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. So it's not really the ideal place maybe for someone with my ethnic origin. And at that time where many mixes were not actually common and we weren't really seen in the media as much. So it was really hard for me to guide what is beauty, because in Japan, the standards are completely different to the standards as of India or Bangladesh. And then again, if you compare it to the standards here in the United States, again, it's completely different. So luckily, I was able to grow up in a very diverse part of Michigan. However, there was no one who really looked like me and no one who really said, wow, this part about you is unique and beautiful. So I didn't have that kind of figure. However, there was a half Bangladeshi model who is also part Japanese from Japan. Her name is Rora. I don't know if some of you guys are familiar with her, but I really looked up to her because she was just like me in a sense, but she was still popular in a country like Japan. Even though she had darker skin, she was there and she was vibrant and she was well liked. So I think that was a key factor into finding my kind of perception of maybe I can look like her or be someone like her, I think.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Were there any maybe parental guidance or family support that helped you navigate what in some ways may have been, some challenging aspects of growing up in Detroit?
So my parents were definitely very kind and supportive. And of course, parents are going to be like, you look beautiful no matter what. But I think that's also a parent's obligation to give that confidence boost. But despite that, of course, no matter how many times my parents reminded me, there was no one really that looked like me still around me. So it was tough, but they did make sure that I had friends who were also half Japanese of different ethnicities. So I was able to still be with someone who shared the same maybe struggles or story as me.
Great. Let's turn to your time here at Michigan State. What led you to choose to come to MSU?
I was accepted. No, I'm just joking. I know that there's a great curriculum here for the Lyman Briggs College specifically. And I did also, I did graduate technically from high school in Michigan. So I did want to stay in state. And my brother went to University of Michigan. And I was
so you wanted to divide your family.
I wanted to divide the family. So I did get accepted here. And that's the main reason why I did come here, though. And also, it is away and it's close to nature. And I really like nature myself. So that was one of the big motivational factors.
Wonderful. As you think back over your time here at both your studies in pre-medical fields as well as of Japanese or maybe as a member of the Japanese club, are there any things that really stand out that helped guide your future path?
Definitely. So one huge part was, I assume that most of you guys are university students or in school. I joined a lot of extracurricular clubs and activities, and I'm such a promoter of that. I really suggest everyone to join a club, to go out and try something different. I think I was in 5 different clubs, and I was the executive board of 3 of them. That was a big mistake. Don't do that. But it was really fun and to be involved within the community. So I made lots of my friends that way. I met so many cool people. I'm still friends with them to this day. So I'm very happy about that. But something particular is the Japanese club for sure. I was the president of it, and it was so much fun to talk about the Japanese culture because I definitely felt proud and I felt like an expert of it. And I was trying to come up with ways to make it more engaging, especially for the Michigan State University community.
Wonderful. So you did speak some Japanese growing up with your mother, but you also studied Japanese while you were here. So kind of a heritage learner. Anything you might share about that experience?
Yes. So, I always had so much confidence speaking Japanese because at home I spoke Japanese all the time. And I'm from the Hyogoken region, Hyogo and Kobe. So we have Kansai Ben, we have an accent when we speak Japanese. And I thought that was the only form of Japanese that existed. However, when I came here and I spoke, I quickly realized that it's a little different, and I was corrected on it because there's multiple different accents in Japanese. And a huge part of it was I was so confident to the point that I thought, oh, it's going to be fine if I speak in professional business settings. I was completely wrong. Keigo, I think a lot of you guys are familiar with it. It's formal talk, it's business language. I had no idea how to do that. And I am so grateful that I took classes here, and Kawaguchi sensei herself was my instructor during that time, and she made an emphasis, when you email me, you have to email me in Keigo, and you have to not go straight to the point. You have to talk about the leaves changing colors, the changing seasons, and then maybe at the end, address what you were trying to say in that email, right? And I had no idea. And if I had not known that and went straight to Japan, and especially a prestigious pageant, emailing the director, hey, this, and this, I would have been disqualified maybe. And those little things that I learned in those classes was so pivotal for me when I went to Japan to not only represent Japan, but to work there and engage with the community. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, great. Those are good lessons for some of my students here in the room as well, I think, about email etiquette. But although you mentioned that you were glad you had the training here before you went to Japan, and I think you said, if I had gone directly, in fact, that is what you ended up doing. You mentioned you missed your own graduation in part because of that, and I assume that had to do with the timing of the contest?
Yes.
So what led to your decision to enter?
So I've always had an interest in doing beauty pageants, but I never had the chance to do them. I was a competitive figure skater all my life, and it wasn't over your physical beauty. It was more your physical abilities. And so I always watched the shows like Toddlers and Tiaras, and I was like, I can do that too. And a part of me always wanted to do it, but I wasn't given the chance. And during my senior year in university, I happened to be scrolling through the internet, and I found a video from Miss Universe 2000. Her name is Laura Dutta, and she was a Miss Universe India as well. And the way she carried herself and composed herself was so elegant. And I literally had a moment where I was like, I want to be just like her. And all I had to do was go online, look it up, and all I did is apply, and here I am today. So internet scrolling isn't too bad if I say so myself.
Okay. The students are going to tell their parents that now, I think, yeah. As someone who had spent time in Japan, obviously for your family, but who grew up more of your time in the United States, did that give you pause or hesitation about entering?
Definitely. I knew that former Miss Universes who had similar backgrounds like myself, or most of them actually didn't because they were actually born in Japan. But they did it and they faced a lot of controversy. Of course, they were not 100% Japanese, and who am I to know about the Japanese culture? So there was a lot of those thoughts in my mind. However, I just knew that I wanted to do it. And of course, when I applied, I didn't think I would win. So I just went for it. And of course, thankfully, my mother and my father really supported me through the process. So that was my biggest motivational factor.
Okay, great. Yes, as you mentioned, there have been some winners in the past who also were of mixed heritage. Um, you are the first, however, to enter using a non-Japanese surname. Was that anything you thought about, or was it a decision? Or
That was something when we apply, we get a stage name. So we are able to apply with not our birth name, but we can make a name for ourselves basically. And I had asked my mother if I could go in with her surname, which is Hasegawa. But she said no, and I'm very glad that she did, because at the end of the day, I can't deny my identity, and the fact that when you look at me, I'm two halves of a person, and so I was very happy at the end of the day. I didn't deny that part of myself because it explains myself. And my first name is Kaya, and Kaya is a Japanese name. When written in Japanese, it's Miyabi. And I'm very happy to have that part and also my father's part, both on stage and the universe competition as well.
yeah, that's very nice. Let's turn maybe to kind of our main topic for the day, which is beauty standards in Japan. As you and I and surely others here in the room who've spent time in Japan know, there's some notable differences, and you alluded to it earlier, between kind of mainstream ideas of beauty in Japan and in the United States. What are some of the things that you've observed in your time in Japan in that regard?
I think a lot of people here know if they like the Japanese culture, but kawaii is more preferred, and lighter skin and having cute features. And
If I could kawaii, for those who don't know, it's most commonly translated as cute.
yes, it's just to be cute and to be adorable is the idealized beauty standard here in Japan. However, in the United States, I noticed that it is much more being strong and being more confident. Like nowadays, I see that a lot more, and being more of a bombshell beauty and very eye-catching. However, in Japan, it is preferred not only in your looks, but also in your behavior of how you carry yourself, to be docile, to be shy, to be quiet and reserved. So those were the huge noticeable differences that I saw between the two countries.
Sure. I know one scholar who refers to kawaii as the most overused word in the Japanese language because it's ubiquitous if you go to Japan. I would think, though, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that culture or that ideal might not line up well with international pageant culture. What do you think about that?
100%, yes. And that was a huge question. So the only time I think I was ever popular throughout, like the most popular throughout my reign, was when I initially won. And it was because I didn't fit the Japanese beauty standards. And the first things all over Twitter, and I don't even have a Twitter account, so I got this from my friends, but the first things they were saying is like, she doesn't even look like what we want in Japan. This isn't what we want. And it got to me. I read every single one of those comments. But at the end of the day, when I went to the Miss Universe competition, I knew exactly why I was sent there in the first place. And it was because I represented a different part of Japanese beauty. And I think that there is different types of Japanese beauties in Japan, not only the cute kawaii type, but there's also the strong independent types as well. And I've seen that in actresses more often, not the Japanese idol. So there are different types of beauty. So I was able to kind of represent that facet more than ever. So I think that was kind of the thing with it. I'm not sure.
Sure. Other things that are often associated with the idea of kawaii, and again, I think you've kind of hinted at this already, and ideas of feminine beauty, sometimes being somewhat childlike or submissive. Are those aspects that you picked up on during your tenure?
Luckily, during my tenure, with my organization specifically, they preferred me to be strong and independent to show that Japanese women do have voices. And because it is a global image, unfortunately, that many people have about Japan, they really assume that Japanese people are often quiet. So I kind of had to change that image and make sure people globally also knew that that's not the case and that we are well spoken. And just because I'm half and I'm from America, I didn't represent that. Former Miss Universe Japan's also had to represent the same image because we were there for women's empowerment. And how empowering would it be to have someone who didn't speak for themselves and didn't stand up for what they believed was right? So we all had to go against that beauty standard and that ideology. But I have seen in Japan definitely maybe with the older and more traditional parts of Japan feed into the kawaii and cute submissive ideology a lot more.
Okay. Wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about your experience in the pageant itself. So what were the judging criteria like, or did you feel there were certain qualities or aspects that were favorable or things like that?
So I think a lot of people have the wrong idea of beauty pageants. And I myself was one of those people. I was thinking, oh my gosh, these girls have no idea what they're talking about. All they care about is how they look. And it was a lot of those thoughts. But once I entered and once I really got to know the game, I realized it really is quite the opposite. So one thing I think a lot of you guys should know is that all of these girls go in with an advocacy, something that they're fighting for. And for me personally, it was children's education and also language development, because thanks to my education and my ability to speak languages, I'm able to be where I am and I'm able to communicate with a lot of people. And I think that's truly important. And each of the girls had their own unique thing that they were fighting for. And another thing is, especially with the Miss Universe organization, is it doesn't matter what age you are when you compete. And I think that's huge. A lot of people think that you have to be a certain age. And of course, depending on the criteria, it is that way. But you can be any age. You can be married. You can be divorced. You can be a mother. You can be a grandmother. You can literally be from any part of your life. And my year, I had a transgender participant myself, and then also a 65-year-old participant with me. And
Wow.
you can't get the same stories that you hear from those ladies. It's absolutely exceptional because obviously they come from different backgrounds. And so I found that truly empowering. And of course, we have the walking criteria. It is about looks to some extent. So we have the bikini walk and the evening gown walk. But most importantly is the Q&A, when we're given a very difficult question. Japan by far is actually the country with the hardest pageant questions. And I was not
Can I
fortunate.
ask what's a sample of a hard pageant question?
Oh, so for example, I think for some reason during my year, I just want to say I had a really difficult question. And the girls before me were, what does beauty mean to you? What would you do if you won? And I was the last girl. And my question was, nowadays, a lot of people, their internet security is being risked.
Oh,
And AI is really common these days. What can you specifically do to make sure that everyone uses the internet safely? I'm no AI or tech expert. I only knew about health education. So that was quite tough. And so some of the girls got worse questions the year before, but you have to be prepared for any question that people throw at you. And something that's not filmed is the interview. We have a 10-minute closed door interview with the judges. And if they don't want to know about you, they won't ask you any questions. And if they do, you'll get more questions. But it's really scary in that sense. And a lot of people misunderstand and misinterpret pageants and don't realize that it is actually about what your capabilities are, your speaking capabilities, and how you handle yourself.
well, that is indeed, would have been thrown me, I think, too, right? Well, fortunately, no questions about AI for you today. Did want to ask, though, a little bit about heritage, right? That's obviously a big part of your identity, as you've talked about with us today. And as, again, you and many in the room may know, for people of visibly mixed heritage anyway, there's a frequently used term, hafu, which comes from the English word half, right? Suggesting someone is half of one thing and half of another. It's a term that my own daughter, who also is of mixed heritage, finds objectionable. But I wondered if you'd speak a little bit about your own experiences, either with that term or just more broadly.
So something I've been trying to change actually with that term is instead of introducing myself as a Japanese Bangladeshi half, I say biracial, just to really make it clear. Because I think even in Japan, we're used to saying that word, but if you say it to a Western audience, they have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, half what? And so I use the term biracial a lot more often. And it is kind of like a category that you're automatically put into, especially in Japan. You're like, oh, hafu. And it's like, okay, you're not Japanese, but you're also not completely a foreigner, but we'll treat you in either way that works best given that circumstance. And that was quite tough. I understood it for myself to some extent because at that time, my Japanese maybe wasn't perfect. But for others who were born and raised in Japan, I think it was hard for them. I have a nephew who is the same exact biracial identity as me. However, he doesn't speak any English, but he looks like he would for someone in Japan. So he gets handed the English menu quite often. And he's like, I don't speak English. I don't know English. This is so hard. And I do feel bad for people who have that kind of struggles who live in Japan with that.
Did you find people would address you in Japanese while you were living in Japan, or did they assume you were an English speaker?
Definitely an English speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And one recognizable memory I had was right after I won, I had the honor to go to Tokushima for the Awa Odori. And it's a very big festival in Japan. And I wore my sash. It said Miss Universe Japan on it. And Tokushima and the area I was in was quite more local. It wasn't the city like Tokyo. However, when I was wearing that sash, so many people came up to me and went, Japan? No, 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 like right to my face. And I was thinking, wow, even if I won this pageant, got recognized, I'm still not Japanese. And that did hurt a little bit at that time. But now I think of it as a benefit because for me, I get to experience two cultures. So I'm very happy about that. But definitely a lot more English than Japanese.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has changed, and others during the Q&A may want to comment on this as well. Certainly when I first went to Japan, a long time ago now, even living outside of Tokyo, people would stare and point, and that doesn't happen today the way it did. But it is still the case that if I'm with a Japanese person, visibly Japanese person standing next to me, and I address a question, say to someone in an information booth in Japanese, they will probably look at my partner and answer rather than address me. So there's still some of that lingers.
Definitely.
Yeah. Any chance you had perhaps while you were serving as Miss Universe Japan to visit schools or meet other children with similar backgrounds?
Yes. So I actually had the chance to go to an international school. In Japan, I went to several. And the reason why I think I was invited was a lot of the kids related to me and they wanted to show that there is someone who represents Japan who looks like me or who looks like them. And that was really important for me because I never had that during my school years. So I was there to talk to them and I actually had the chance to have one-on-ones with each of the students. And one of them decided to join a beauty pageant right after. So I was very happy. But there are a lot more mixed students and mixed kids in Japan. However, I think that there still needs to be more figures that they could relate to. But the good thing is we have a lot of athletes, thankfully, like the tennis player Naomi Osaka and some basketball players as well. So we're getting there, but we still get the same thing in the media for sure.
No, there are a number of prominent athletes, as you mentioned, right? Naomi Osaka or Hachimura Rui, right? In the world of professional basketball. And of course, a lot of the talento you referred to earlier that I see on TV when I go to Japan these days often are of mixed heritage. Do you find in your role you've intermingled with other people in the public sphere who are of mixed heritage?
Yes, I had the chance to meet other influencers and content creators that were of mixed heritage, but I still noticed that a lot of them are much more popular if they are of the more European descent rather than of other descents in Asia, because to some extent European features are still more appreciated in Japan. And so now slowly I'm seeing that there are more hafus or biracial people that are becoming popular despite being from that background. So I'm really happy to see that happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One other, before we leave this topic of biracial people or people of mixed identity, there's the people who are, and this is a term that I didn't originate, scholars have used it, visibly mixed race, and then those who are invisibly mixed race, right? Perhaps a Japanese parent and a Chinese parent or something where you wouldn't look at this person and immediately know. So perhaps you've met people of this background as well, and how have those conversations gone if you've talked about your identity?
A Miss Universe Japan before me, Watanabe Juri, she was half Korean, half Japanese. And I actually had no idea until I looked at her Wikipedia. And the thing is, I think the things that we face is still completely different. It is unfortunately the case that depending on the type of hafu or biracial ethnicity that you are, the way you're treated is still going to be different. So me being someone who was from South Asia, it wasn't popular, I guess, in Japan at that time. And so when we talk about our experiences, even in the biracial hemisphere in Japan, there are still divisions in that category, unfortunately. So I hate to see it, but it is improving, luckily. And because Japan is becoming much more westernized in beauty standards and ideals, it is becoming much more accepted and people are being much more open-minded towards it.
Well, it's good to hear. You mentioned earlier about some of the criteria that you think are really emphasized in a pageant like the one that you were in. And maybe terms like assertive or intelligent or having ambitious goals, which you certainly do, or demonstrating leadership. And yet, I mean, again, you alluded to this earlier, there's still this kind of lingering impression that in the end it's a beauty pageant. So what, anything more you want to share about your ideas of how these pageants may be changing, or what people, you already suggested some ways things that people might not realize about pageants, but other things that perhaps you developed from that experience that you might use later in life.
So when I went to the Miss Universe pageant, I was blessed with the fact that I was competing over 130 girls, which meant 130 girls representing 130 different countries. And what I noticed is that everyone looks different. And that's exactly why we were there in the first place. Beauty and uniqueness was celebrated at the competition, and it was better to be more of what you looked like and what you represented. And that made me really happy to see that all these girls, yes, we're all beautiful, but if we put us on the same scale of beauty, of course we're going to be ranked differently. But what the competition celebrated was not putting us on that same scale, actually. It was seeing what parts of us were beautiful, not only our appearance, but also our background stories, what we had to offer, what jobs that they had, because a lot of the women were in entrepreneurship, were in the army. They all came from so many different backgrounds, and I think that was what made the competition more compelling and made each person more beautiful, if that made sense. So that was really good for my own self-confidence. And what I realized was that a Miss Universe is someone who represents beauty all around the world. So even if I don't represent maybe the beauty standards in Japan, if I became a Miss Universe, a lot of people would relate to me and realize that I am the face of different beauty around the world. So that's something that I really was blessed to be there and gain more confidence while giving confidence to other people at the same time.
Oh, that's great. You have family, I assume, back in Bangladesh. So what was their reaction to all of this?
They were so happy. Beauty pageants in India and Bangladesh are kind of celebrated. And so they were very happy. But the first question they asked was, why didn't you represent Bangladesh instead? But the reason I didn't, I want to say, is because I don't speak the language fluently. And I would want to represent a country where I can speak the language and understand the culture more. But either way, they were very happy. They were very sweet. And I still get messages from them about it and what I'm doing. So they were very happy.
Well, that's very nice. We've talked a lot about feminine beauty for obvious reasons. But since you've spent some time in Japan, we were wondering if you might comment a little on male ideas of attractiveness in Japan, contemporary Japanese society, if there's anything you would be able to share.
I noticed that nowadays, I think with the spread of media and how commonly used it is, a lot of guys or men are becoming more concerned about how they look. And in Japan, actually, it's becoming more common for men to do laser hair removal. And I didn't know that was a thing until my mother told me and some of my male friends told me from Japan. So I think they are starting to become more kind of aware and more like ishiki like they have that in the back of their minds that, oh, maybe I should care about my appearance too. So that has become more common, and I think even plastic surgery in
Mm.
general, even amongst men, has become more popular even in Japan. So that's something I've noticed, and I think it might be because not only media but the expectations of what Japanese people look like, maybe because of anime and manga becoming more popularized and the Asian culture in general booming in Western society.
What about, kind of the idea in the United States anyway of the macho or the virile man, which I don't think we see as often in Japan?
I don't think that is a
Mm.
common trait that Japanese men in particular think as attractive. I think being more lean and healthy is more of the image. And I think it's also because there's no jobs, I think, that would accept someone looking in that particular way, because it would also, one, be hard to keep up with it, and two, also as a society, Japan, in work life culture, it could be seen as something that's distracting you from your work if you are maybe too fit. So unfortunately, I think as a society, it's better to kind of have the same look or smaller figure or frame compared to those of the United States.
Okay. Are there, I don't know if you would be able to answer this. Did you have any friends or people you met who competed in, are there male pageants or something like that?
Actually, yes, there are now male beauty pageants, and unfortunately, I don't know too much about them, but I do know that they exist. But if you ask me if they're popular, no, they're not popular at all, just because I think they're scared to do it. Men are, because it is a judgmental society at the end of the day. We do in Japan, we do care about what other people think about us. And so if we do it, some people might get made fun of. So it isn't encouraged. So last time I saw, I think there were only 3 participants at a beauty pageant for males, versus for my year or other people's years, like 50 or 60 girls you're competing against. So there is a huge difference between the two.
Okay. Before we leave this question of pageants, I just wanted to ask for a little more about, your own experience. You mentioned your mother and you were from Hyogo. So was there a Hyogo regional competition that you then had to win before moving to the national level?
So for Miss Universe Japan, there's 2 ways to enter, and it could be through the regional competition, like the prefecture that you represent, or an online submission. And what I did was the online submission because I wouldn't be able to make it in time. But nowadays, it is becoming a lot more common to go from your prefecture to the actual competition, because it allows you to have more training versus someone like me who had no training at all when going into it.
And is it surprising that you were a very impressive accomplishment, but there must have been some people you were competing against who had extensive training? Is it unusual for someone to achieve that status with as little training as you'd had?
I think depending on the year and the cycle, sometimes the judges are looking for something different. And so for my year, I was lucky that they wanted someone who was fresh and different. So I think I fit into what they were looking for more that year. One, also that the competition is in Mexico and I spoke Spanish. So that was a huge advantage to having me at the competition. And the good thing was, actually all the girls I competed against with all those experiences actually had to help me as well. So we learned a lot from each other, and they were very kind, even though we were competing against each other.
That's it. That's not the image we often have, right? In the popular media of beauty contests, we picture kind of a little bit of a
Like a cat fight.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Last question about your tenure as Miss Universe Japan 2024. For me, anyway, though the audience, I'm sure, will have more. If there was one particularly memorable experience you had during your year serving in that role, what would that have been?
I'm going to mention 2 really quickly. One being that I was able to visit almost every region of Japan, and I wouldn't have had that experience had I not been in this position. That was huge because I got to meet with people from Japan who really loved each region and wanted me to speak about it and showcase it to the world. And I found that very touching because each people in Japan, those mayors, those governors, were very passionate about their prefecture. So I found that very beautiful. And the second being, I had the chance to actually be the teacher this year for the next set of girls, next batch. And I didn't think I would get that position, but being on the other side is really nice and not, not being the one being judged, but to judge. But I wasn't really judging because I just found each of the girls really, really beautiful and like they were so passionate. And I loved seeing that because I hadn't seen that in a while, especially in a country like Japan. So I loved to see that and teach the girls how to build their confidence and how to speak and be literate in what they're trying to say.
Sure, great. Well, the time with me is drawing to a close. We want to have time for the audience to pose some questions as well. So just a couple last things from me before we conclude this portion of the afternoon. I wonder if you'd speak a little bit about your future plans now that you've finished your tenure as Miss Universe.
Yes. So a lot of people were asking me if I'm still pursuing a medical career, and the answer is yes. I'm going to be taking that medical entrance exam, the MCAT, in March. So that is still in the plan, and I do still plan on attending medical school in the future. And hopefully from there, while being a doctor, I can still do voluntary work alongside this platform.
That's great. Well, good luck with the MCAT.
Thank you.
Finally, as you think back maybe over your time studying here at MSU, living in Japan, and serving in the role as Miss Universe Japan 2024, any message for the students who are here today or for perhaps people who are going to view the video later that you'd like to share?
I think a lot of the people here have a strong interest in Japan in general, or if in general going to Asia. And I really urge you all to take advantage of the resources that are here on campus and to really learn and absorb as much as you can, because later down the line, when you're in a moment where you're thinking, oh, I wish I learned this in class, you'll be so grateful that you actually did. And that's something I'm incredibly grateful for, the community here and the Japanese language program here that has equipped me with what I needed for my job, which I didn't think I would even be doing. And second, along those lines, to go and try anything that you really want to try, because I really, really would not be here if I had not done a simple application online. So just apply for anything, because your life could look completely different. And it scares me knowing that if I hadn't been scrolling on the internet or applying, I would be living a completely different life. And that's really scary. So I hope you all today feel somewhat encouraged to try something different and try something new.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you.
But before we let Kaya off the stage, we have an opportunity for those of you here in the audience to pose questions.
Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, like if Bengal beauty or like Bengal standards of beauty had any inspiration on you for your journey in the pageant, and I wanted to share that Kaya is actually a Bengali word as well, and it means body or physique. So yeah.
Thank you for teaching me that. I didn't know that. But to answer your question, definitely. At the end of the day, I'm not just Japanese. I'm also very well close with my other Bangladeshi side. And so I would always celebrate puja and other festivities that are in the Hindu religion specifically. And so I love wearing the Bangladeshi traditional clothing such as saris and lehengas. So I would still infuse that feature of Bangladeshi heritage, like desi makeup looks, because those complemented me much more than the cute style looks. And I knew that very quickly on because I made the mistake of trying to fit into that standard and it looked very bizarre on me. And so if I mixed the two kind of cultures and the makeup look having a sharper eye, personally, that complemented me a lot more. And of course, the beauty secrets of, the desi traditions as well. So using turmeric powder, for example. So I definitely have a strong influence from Bangladesh still. Thank you for your question.
I was wondering, since you talked extensively about like the beauty standards and things in Japan, did you ever notice anything about clothing standards in Japan as well, and how that either enhances beauty or kind of disregards it in the ways of pairing them together, having them differently. How was your experience with that?
Thank you so much for your question. Actually, I used to be a huge fan of Harajuku fashion. I love Japanese fashion, and it was all about accessorizing. But something I think we all need to know is that Japan has so many different subcultures of fashion. And so if we're talking about the standard fashion of what is more idealized in Japan, I definitely didn't fit the kind of clothing wise. It didn't look great on me. And so I would tend to be more like the Western fashion for sure, because those were things that looked better on me and fit me better versus the Japanese fashion being more kind of flowy and cute, which there's no issue with that. It's just not the look, I think, style I was going for. But if I did wear the Western fashion in public, I was definitely looked at a lot more, and definitely even in Tokyo addressed more in English versus if I was wearing a Japanese style clothing, they would speak to me in Japanese actually. So it kind of does maybe change the way that you're treated in Japan to some extent. Thank you for your question.
When you mentioned Bengali pageants were celebrated in the Philippines, pageants are really prevalent too. So children are able to like do beauty pageants, and my older cousin did a beauty pageant in the Philippines, but a local one. In Japan, are beauty pageants common, or are they prevalent?
That's a great question. Actually, I know the Philippines is a huge pageant country. I actually went to the Philippines to get my dress made because there are more people equipped with the sewing skills specifically for pageant dresses, actually, because I could not find any in Japan. And you would
Wow,
think,
I never would have guessed that.
and you would think that in a country when everyone has an image of Japan being so high tech and so modern day, they actually don't have this craftsmen available to do that. So I actually went to the Philippines, and I know that it's a huge culture in the Philippines. So to address that, in Japan, it's not popular as compared to Southeast Asia, unfortunately. So when I went to the Miss Universe competition in Mexico, there were so many fans from the Philippines, actually. They made their way to fly all the way over there. And I was like, wow, it's a huge power country, the amount of love that comes. So Miss Philippines, my year, her name is Chelsea Manalo. She was so blessed. And I told her every day, you must be feeling powerful even in Mexico. And for me, I luckily had my team fly in from Japan. Otherwise, I think it would have just been my parents cheering me on. So unfortunately, not as popular. And when I flew to actually the Philippines, there were people who recognized me in public. And it was the first time I felt like a celebrity a little bit. And I was like, oh, like, you know me? And I was like, oh. But when I landed back to Japan, no one had any idea who I was. So I do notice that, the big difference between the countries. But thank you for your question.
You should have told us. We could have had Spartan Nation go to Mexico. Yeah.
It's a huge difference, literally the Southeast Asia and the Latino community as well.
Yeah.
What was, if you did have it, what do you think was the biggest piece of advice you wanted to give this year's contestants for Miss Universe Japan that you really wanted to instill into them for this year's competition?
That's a great question, actually. Because I was their mentor and I had to guide them the whole process, the biggest thing I wanted them to feel or remember is to be proud of themselves, mainly because it takes a lot of guts to go out and be in a bikini in the first place, right? Be in a bikini and put yourself out there and be confident when you speak. And actually, you would think the most scariest thing is being like half naked on the stage, but actually the scariest thing is speaking on stage and being sure of who you are. But something I kept reminding the girls was, you know yourself best. So if I ask you a question about yourself, I don't know anything about you. So you have to have the confidence to speak about yourself. And so that's what I made sure that they knew that they knew themselves and they were sure of themselves, because that's the biggest and most important lessons that you can take away from this. Even if you don't win, even if you don't end up where you want to be, you get to be a better version of yourself. You get to be more developed as a person. You got more confident. At least you took that step, and that can trickle on onto other things and other entrepreneurships, be it jobs that you want to take in the future.
I wanted to say I was really empowered by your talk about biracial and finding that identity within yourself, and how you shed light on how wherever you go in the world with like where you're from and how you identify as yourself, it changes. You have to switch. Like I think there's a term like code switching. Like you have to read the room a little bit. In terms of like confidence, I guess in general, what does the word identity mean to you, or how do you feel about like the term identity in reference to yourself?
Thank you. In reference to myself, I think it would be hard for a lot of people with mixed origins to put themselves in one category and say, I am this. And I used to try doing that. And I think part of the reason why I even chose to do Miss Universe Japan is I was chasing for that acceptance of, I am actually Japanese. But then even when I got there, I still wasn't at the end of the day. So now I'm still working on it, of course. I'm never going to be where exactly I think people nowadays is the perfect place, but I'm very content with myself. And I think the biggest thing that I've gotten to accept that is appreciation and having gratitude, because if I had not been born this way, if I had not been born from a different country or different cultures, I would have no knowledge of the fantastic side of being both Japanese and then eating Bangladeshi food at home, being in a country, the United States, being super diverse and being able to learn about other cultures and other diverse backgrounds. I think that's what it came down to, me accepting who I am and being happy that I get to hear these stories and, you know, be part of a larger community rather than trying to always and constantly fit into something that will never eventually exist, unfortunately. But that's also something beautiful in itself. So yes, I hope that answers your question.
So thank you. It's really been a wonderful interview. Thank you, Professor Siegel, and thank you, Kaya, for your really wise words. So you talked a little bit about Bangladeshi food. I wanted to pursue that just a little more. What were you exposed sort of equally to Bangladeshi and Japanese food, but everything else, I guess, that America has to offer, given our diversity? And was it the same with music? And why half and not two?
That's a great thing that you just mentioned. So my mom is a great cook. And luckily, my father is also a great cook. And actually, my father speaks fluent Japanese. And you would think, oh, because he's so engrossed with the Japanese culture, he loves Japanese food. He can't live without Bangladeshi food. He cooks it every single day. So when it's time for dinner, I always get to put 2 different cuisines on my plate, and it's always fish. And I think a lot of people call me the ultimate fish eater because Bangladesh is known to eat so much fish, so many different types of fish curries. And then Japan, obviously, you know, sushi, sashimi. And so I consider myself the ultimate fish eater thanks to both of my parents. So I had that influence. And for music, obviously I heard a lot more Japanese music just because the language-wise I understood it more. But my dad is actually taking up drum lessons at the moment. So I will be hearing a lot more Indian music at home, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, because he's not good at it at the moment. But yes, I do have both influences. And yes, I am, at the end of the day, 2 cultures, not just half of each. So it is 100 and 100 of both cultures. Thank you.
Have you faced any cultural challenges balancing your Japanese and Bangladeshi roots in public life?
In public life, do you mean, could I get more clarification on that, if that's possible?
Yes. So as you are growing up, as you are, advancing into the person you are now, was there any, criticism? Was there anything that, set you back or gave you pushback in, what you are now?
Yes. So to answer your question, yeah, I got a lot of kind of which I found funny. Both cultures, both the Japanese side of community and both the Bangladeshi side, not fighting over me, that sounds crazy, but they were arguing for each other. I think, why did you represent Japan? Why didn't you represent Bangladesh? And there was a lot of that. And if I had said something wrong or in a wrong accent, like when I speak English, I say Chakrabortty, but it's actually pronounced Chakrabortty. And one time I said that just casually, and online I was ripped to shreds. And the thing is, at the end of the day, no matter what, I can't also please everyone, especially in the media, because someone always has something to be upset about, unfortunately. So what I understood from that is I shouldn't try to please both sides, but only please myself, because I can't control those things. And I'm speaking as I'm speaking. I'm not constantly thinking about those things, because if I did, I wouldn't be able to speak in general. So I did get a bit of those things, unfortunately, but I just realized I live once. People are gonna hate on me, it's okay. So yes, I hope that answered your question a little bit. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to say thank you, because I'm, as a biracial person who's also half Japanese, I just want to say thank you for that. But my question is, do you have any advice to give to people who are dealing with their own biracial identity as a whole?
Advice as in how to feel more confident?
Yeah, how to feel more confident about their biracial ethnicity.
I think a lot of people have different struggles with this, so I don't know how to specifically address it to maybe you or a large audience, but I think the most important thing that you can do is really be happy that you get to benefit from two different countries. I think I've said that a few times already, but it's such a beautiful thing. Honestly, people don't get to say that. And there's only a small percentage of the population that have the same background or ethnic background as you. And so it should be something that's rather celebrated. And it is unique. And I think that uniqueness in general nowadays is being celebrated. So we have to really take the time to realize that no one else can be like me. No one else has the same exact background story as me either. So just really remember that and take that in, because you're cool. I think it's a cool thing. So I think that that's something that you should just remind yourself every day about.
I want to say thank you for this presentation for today. I wanted to ask, seeing that you're doing a double major and you're continuing your education, how was the life of being, finding out your second major, or was it something that was always planned?
Thank you for your question. Actually, I was just a human biology major the whole time. And actually, at one point, I was actually international relations during my sophomore year, because I was like, maybe I should switch it up. And then I went back to human biology. And then during my fourth year in university, I decided to add the additional major to do neuroscience. And the reason why is because, like I've said before, why not? It was just an extra year. I was able to afford it. So I decided to add it. And it was something that aligned with something I wanted to do in the future, because I did want to do medicine. But what if I also wanted to get a PhD in the future? So I just went ahead and did it, because I could have done it later in life, but since I was already in the time and place to do it, I did it. So it did take, in total, 5 years to graduate, and I never had a summer off, unfortunately, but it was well worth it, and it's something I'm internally grateful for now. So it is possible, it is doable. You will have to make certain sacrifices, but it's really worth it in the long run. So if you have something of that interest, definitely do it.
Great. Kaya, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Before we adjourn, he may not know I'm about to do this, but I'm going to invite Dr. Siddharth Chandra, the director of the Asian Studies Center, who I understand there's something in the front of the room here that he might be able to present to our esteemed guest. And then in a few minutes, we'll adjourn for a reception where we can talk further with Kaya.
I thought you were going to give this to her, but thank you so much, Kaya, for coming back.
Thank you so much.
And for all your accomplishments and the real wisdom that you've shared with all of us today. I think all of us are going to take away some very important lessons. And also, as Director of Asian Studies, for advocating for learning Japanese. So for those of you who are interested in Japan, we've got a great program. We have a number of faculty members here who are really committed to helping you learn about Japan, please consider taking it. We also do offer Bangla off and on an on-demand basis. So if somebody wants to learn Bangla, consider that, come to the center and we'll talk about it. And we're also producing a textbook on Bangla, an online open education resource. So maybe you'll have a chance to access that. But thank you so much again.
Thank you so, so much.
Welcome back to MSU.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra, and thank you, audience, for asking thoughtful questions. It's time to conclude the interview, but please stay for the reception if you can. And then Kaya, thank you so much for visiting MSU and sharing your story with us. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.